The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed are the speaker's own and does not represent legal or accounting advice or counsel and should not be seen as such. The material and information presented here is for general information purposes only. We make no promises or assertions on how this information will impact your business, your personal life, or financial well-being. The information relayed does not imply endorsement or offer opposition to any specific organization, product, or services. Welcome to Shift. I'm your host, Lori Power, and I'm looking forward to our conversation. So really pleased to have you back, Dave. I appreciate it. We just did not have enough time to dig into the conversation on group retirement and GRS, what we're going to talk about today, financial literacy, where it fits into the whole benefit schematic. So for those that may not have seen your interview in the past, can you take a quick moment, introduce yourself and your role with People Corp, and then we can launch right into it.
Sure. Well, and thanks very much for having me again. It's always a delight to talk to you, Lori. So here at People Corps, I work on the Group Retirement Solutions team. My title is Director of Partner Solutions, and in that I do a lot of work with some of our partner firms who are benefit focused, and I'm essentially the group retirement liaison for those groups. So as a result, I work with clients of all sizes. I work with big companies. I work with really small companies. And my mandate is a noble one, but a very big one, and that's really, let's get as many group retirement programs out there for employers and employees, and make sure that Canadian employees have access to these really great programs that they may not have access to already. So.
And that brought us into that financial literacy component of introducing a group retirement plan or a pension program, some sort of schematic. The idea is that financial literacy is not the group RSP. And sometimes things fail because there are assumptions made and there are expectations that are outside the product offering. So to be clear, introducing a group retirement savings program or a pension schematic into the company is not financial literacy. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure, and this is a lot about how this aspect, or like the aspect that I'm involved with of the benefits world, has really evolved over the last 20 years. So 20 years ago, a group retirement program was, there was not quite as much depth to it. So it was really, you introduce the program, you get the employees contributing, the employer contributes, and that's pretty much it that happens with it. You have your meeting every year. The employees, they might get some marketing from the provider about, hey, RSP season's coming up, or do you know where to get your tax receipts, this kind of stuff. But one of the things, I mean, as this industry has evolved, more research gets done. We have more data to sort of look at things. And one of the things that came about of it is the reason that we were not seeing as much contribution into group retirement programs as would be forecasted or as expected is that there's just too many competing needs for individuals' dollars. And if you talk about someone's retirement, I mean, mine's 20 years away. I've been working for a long time. Even people at my age aren't necessarily thinking about their retirement. And if you take somebody who's 20 or 25 years younger, they're really not thinking about their retirement. So they're doing things like, rather than putting that money away into group retirement programs, they're spending it on vacations, or having too much fun with their friends, whatever it might be, right? So we, almost as sort of twofold, fulfilling two objectives, right? We get paid on the amount of money that's in these group retirement programs. If we're not seeing we'll take the responsibility of making sure that if people aren't making those contributions, like even just getting to their match that their employer's offering, what can we be doing to combat this problem of retirement is not an immediate need for me, X, Y, and Z is an immediate need for me. And I sort of made light a little bit of what people were spending their money on, if it was cars or vacations or going out and partying. But obviously there's the darker side of that coin as well, where people have medical bills, or people to look after, this kind of thing, right? So what we started to do within group retirement is look at, we are, if we're going in and we're talking to employees and clients about their retirement, about their money and their finances anyways, it's a really easy, obvious dovetail for us to be talking about how they can have a better or more financially well life now, and be able to provide the tools or even direction how to get the tools, so that they can have, relieve that financial stress in their lives, and start being able to build long term, which is really what you want your money doing, right? You want your money working for you over, not 5 months, but 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. So,
Let's talk about the assumption. I like the way you had put the three pillars, right? We
mhm,
have the physical health, we have the mental health, emotional health, and we have the financial health. And there are some assumptions, and you made a really good example offline
mm,
of, even if we go back 5 years ago and the stigmatisms associated with mental health and emotional health and people's journey to get to what is considered healthy. Take people and the amount of openness there is now for physicality and people dealing with a lot of disease components that they may have hidden before, right? They may have had somebody who was at home suffering with a disease, a debilitating disease, but not talk about it, not feel like they
mhm,
could. I think we've a little ways to go, and I'm going to say it's a big ways, but I think we're
mhm,
making progress in there. That we do make the assumption, though, that people are born with a sense of financial well-being, that we're just going to naturally know that we need a will, that we're just going to naturally know to put aside 10% of our income, and we're going to stick to that forever. But that is such a false assumption. It certainly doesn't fall within the boots on the ground experience that I have had over the last couple of decades in
mhm.
dealing with employees. And even more so now, we talk about the curated lifestyle, keeping up with everybody who's on social media. Um, what are your thoughts with regards to that and people not participating in their group RSP?
Yeah. So, again, definitely linked back to what are you perceiving as priorities within your life. And we have to remember too, like these are lessons that we learn basically from the time that we're conscious. We're seeing how our parents handle money, whether or not our parents talk to us about money. Like I know obviously a lot of parents, this is an adult thing, we don't want to concern the kids about it. And then, one day you're sort of, you've graduated university and your parents have now retired, but you don't really know how they got from the point that you are in your life to the point where they are in their life, right? They'd be able to build that up and this sort of thing. um, and so I think, I like, definitely people know that they have to save for retirement. I don't think there's anybody out there that this is going to be a surprise to, but it is these competing dollars. We don't get, I mean, even if we're lucky enough to have parents to talk to us about money, that's great. If we don't, like most people probably don't, we don't really have an education system in our, our K through 12 that talks to us about money very much, right? So there's another opportunity where we've lost that, the chance to get that education there. People know they have to save for retirement, but it's these immediate needs that come up right away, be they actual needs like your groceries or your prescriptions or this sort of thing, or perceived needs, as you mentioned, the curated lifestyle, the vacations and the car that you maybe can't quite afford the payments on every month and this kind of thing, right? So, having that, I mean, the group RSP is a great piece for employers in that not only is it giving a easy access to employees to begin those savings, right? They're not having to go into a bank necessarily and set this stuff up and, have to learn about all this stuff. You've got all of this background work already done for the employees, especially on the investing component as well. They've got really nice funds in there that they don't have to move around, to rebalance, etc. And then, of course, it also again offers that opportunity to have that larger financial wellness picture too, right? So, depending on, I mean, of course, I would love to see more engagement from employers about, bringing, having financial wellness days or sessions or this kind of thing, and really using those resources that are available. Most providers, at the very least, they're going to have handouts and emails and this sort of thing that can be distributed to employees. And even and as you get a little bit larger, or if you're working with a consultant like myself, there are those face-to-face or webinar education opportunities as well to get people, you know, learning. Here's how you budget. What do you do about your debt? Do you have an emergency fund? Here's how to build an emergency fund. All these great aspects of financial wellness, which again, once you have all those pieces in place, you're not going into work every day thinking about, you're operating a forklift and lifting 3 tons, and you're thinking about whether or not you're going to make your car payment tomorrow, right? That's not where everyone wants your head at. So,
Right.
having those building blocks in place and getting them out to the employees, I think is critical, not just to the success of the employees, but to the success of a whole group retirement program, because it's all linked together.
Two thoughts come to mind, and that is one, I'm a huge proponent of just-in-time education, right?
Mm,
It needs to, when we're dealing with different generations within any given workforce, what is pertinent to one generation or one stage of life is not necessarily pertinent to the other. So if we take those early engaged workers between that 20 to 30 range, and we start talking to them like you said about retirement, that may be 40 years down the road. We talk
hmm
to them about the importance of having preparing for a mortgage when they only intend to rent. It's not just in time, so it bounces off as though you're hitting a tennis ball against a racket.
hmm
That's one side of the equation when we're talking about group retirement and where financial literacy may or may not fall within that. And it's all great on paper and it sounds really good. But then the other side of the coin is much like the reason schools don't do financial literacy is how much are we expecting from the employer to take on that parental role, to take
hmm
on that I'm going to be all things to my employees when they have natural turnover and then they have to coincide or correlate those numbers to say, am I going to invest this kind of time, which may not result in a productivity boost and a boost to my bottom line.
Yeah, the connection is definitely very tenuous. It's not a straight line between, if I buy lunch and bring everybody in for a session on budgeting, I'm not going to see it on my bottom line in a month or 6 months, right? This is very much about, workplace satisfaction, I think, first and foremost. And, just because there's not the sort of, we don't see a direct, it is very much down to the employer and how paternal they want to be with it, right? I mean, I think that's an excellent point. If you don't have that culture in your company already, I think that the employees would find it rather strange for just to start out. But if you do have sort of that education, that training component, if that's important to your organization, this is one more piece that you can get in there to help your employees. So
What are some of the questions that you wish employers would ask before setup so that it would promote the longevity of the plan and would promote that continuous education? Because again, I think where benefits and where group retirement schematics fail over the long
mhm.
term is when we as the advisors don't keep up on that continuous and ongoing communication aspect. Added to that is that preliminary learning, that knowing what you're getting into before you get
Mhm.
into it. What are some of the things that you wish that perhaps employers would ask or advisors would give prior to setting up the plan?
I think the big question on that is, what education is available to us? Because I think that a lot of times employers will see setting up a group retirement plan very much as I alluded to 10, 15 years ago. Set up the plan, off it goes, people retire, they take their money out, right? And I don't think they're really aware of all of the education opportunities that are available for them to promote not just their program. I mean, what I before my current role, I was in an education role as well. And so oftentimes what we want to do is, and if you talk to your friends and this sort of thing who are outside of the benefits community, you ask them about their group retirement plan, lots of times they have no idea. So That's the first thing there, right? Is or they're not in worst case, they're not even participating, right? So I think that the fact that employers don't know that there's education available, they don't know the scope of the education, right? So I mean, if one of my clients has employees that don't know about the program, the first thing I want to do is, oh, let's get an education session so that they can learn about the program. They're not leaving money on the table. Now, maybe there's an employer out there or two that is happy that people don't know about the program very well, but for the most part, I think that they do want to promote this to their employees. It is a benefit that a tangible benefit that employees can latch onto. So obviously, making sure that the employer knows that education is available, starting with, does everybody know about the plan, right? If there's people that aren't quite, and then from that point, you can dovetail it into other things like the budgeting, like the debt management, et cetera, some of the aspects I mentioned before. I think that a lot of employers, when you talk to them about education, they're just thinking, oh yeah, well, we're setting up this program, so we're going to have our initial education sessions to announce the plan to everybody. But that's not, I mean, that's great for the people that work there, but there's always people coming in that need to know about it. Are they getting the attention that is needed for them to be successfully engaged in the program? And so that's the first thing, is making sure that employers are asking about education. And sort of the sub question of that is, well, what kind of education is there, right? Because it can be webinars, face to face, flyers. We can put things up in lunchrooms, all kinds of things. All of these carriers have huge catalogs of financial wellness pieces that aren't being used right now. So,
And being able to roll them out effectively so
mm,
you're not one vomiting on
yes.
people or hitting them with the fire hose, because either way it's not going to be put in. I do like to, if they're going to put lunchroom items up, or they're going to talk about it in their safety meetings or their touch points with their employees, to pick little nuggets and lay
Hmm.
them out so that it's pertinent to the other pieces of the conversation that they're having. I think that's the most strategic alignment that we can make, is when we align them all together. um, I was going to make a mention, you had mentioned something and I thought, oh, this is what it was. I find linking, when you do, sorry, I'm going to start again and I'm going to
Sure.
say, I really like how you outlined your three pillars.
Hmm.
If I'm going to circle back to those three pillars, I'm going to say that we can link all three of those together when we put in a group employee assistance program, because the group employee assistance program, for the most part, has a financial literacy side to it. And we can cross promote that to both the benefit program and for the group retirement services, and really hit those three pillars. There's a fabulous Canadian not for profit company,
Hmm.
Credit Counseling, that will provide that kind of literacy as well, right at their fingertips within that app. And I think that cross promotion leads into what you're saying. If the employer really wants to put a fence post around their top talent and keep them, they're going to want them to be engaged in the group RSP. They're going to want them to be contributing. And
Hmm.
as I'm very fond of saying to employees, why would you walk away from money?
Exactly.
You're calling
Yep.
up radio stations to, contribute to the latest trivia to get a couple $100. Why are
Yeah.
you walking away from thousands of dollars from your employer?
Yeah. Yeah. It's and that's a huge part of the message as well. And I think, I mean, there's some people out there that perhaps shy away because they feel that they can do a better job investing on their own. But you have to do very, I mean, any matching program, that's 100% return on your investment as soon as you put your money in, right? Like it's, you have to you have to be an outstanding fund or stock selector to be able to beat a matching program. So it doesn't, it's either, it's another education gap is what it is. If people aren't taking advantage of that money, then the message is not, the right message is not getting to them, or they're getting a distorted message, I guess is probably more accurate. Because I don't know, it's I can't find that kind of return anywhere else. So
No, not at
yeah.
all.
Yeah, and then just back, one thing I was thinking about when you're talking about the three pillars is, you can't address only two of those, and I think that that's something that we've been doing for a very long time. I mean, for a while, if you look at benefits, they were really only addressing one. There was very little talk of mental or emotional wellness or health. And obviously, over the last little while, that's made its way into the conversation, which is great. More people are talking about it, it's becoming more accepted. And finance is sort of following along behind that as well. But you can't, you cannot address just two of these pillars, right? Where you find issues with one, you will likely find issues with the other two, and so you have to sort of look at the whole thing holistically, of course, and that again, those assistance programs that you referenced are great ways of doing that.
What are some little known statistics that you come across in your desk, but they just
Oh,
don't come out enough in when we're talking about GRS?
I had brought some things up here. Let me just give me 2 seconds here. I'll find some good ones for us. Right. Hold on. I had them right here. Apologize. Here. So, okay. Mm, okay. Those who have a budget are more likely to make financially smart decisions and avoid falling behind, overspending, or needing to borrow money. Non-budgeters fall behind on financial commitments at twice the rate of budgeters. So that's
Twice the rate. That's that's a lot.
that was 16% to 8% on that. Non-budgeters spend 30% of non-budgeters spend more than their monthly income compared to 15% of budgeters. That's another 2 to 1. Non-budgeters need to borrow for day-to-day expenses, 42%, budgeters, 30%. So another big gap there as well. So I did have some here as well on, you just give me 2 seconds. Hold on, I'm gonna open something up here. Okay. On financial wellness, we have some good ones. So, okay, almost half of working Canadians admitted that stress related to their finances has impacted their work performance. So that's half. So that kind of comes back to that example I used of the guy on the forklift thinking about his car payment the next day rather than the 2 tons that he's got on the forklift, right?
Then we get into
Um,
workplace safety, productivity.
Workplace safety,
Exactly.
mental health is another one too. We've got a lot of mental health breaks relating to finances. But poor finance is a huge source of stress. 69% of individuals would choose a new job with a group savings plan over their current job if it does not have one. So that's almost 70% there. And 70% of employees do feel that their employer should support their financial well-being. So there's an appetite there among the workforce to be looking for this information from their employers.
There seems to be a bit of an opportunity here for employers to who are using social media to attract,
Mm-hmm.
recruit talent to also take this as an opportunity to put some financial literacy on themselves. They can gather that information from their carrier, from their
Mm-hmm.
advisor, and transfer that onto their logoed social media posts and
Yeah,
really start to build that brand that is we want to work here because we are actively engaged in this. And
yeah.
although it's I wouldn't call it no money fun, it is something that has a residual, ongoing, recurring benefit to it because it's not just a post it and be done. It's a post it, but can I use it with my new recruits? Can I put it as part of the policy manual? Can I
Mhm.
make it as part of the ongoing communication with staff members to let them know that we are a caring employer and that is part of our fabric of our culture?
Yeah, very much so, and, those that I mean, we have seen, um, you looked on LinkedIn or Benefits Canada website, and those mail outs, they'll have articles and employers promoting their financial wellness aspect all the time. It's always a good news story. I mean, it's can't of course, it's a good news story, they're putting it on there, but, it's really hard to see the downside of being engaged with those sorts of programs as an employer, from both that recruiting as well as the retention aspects.
Do you have any stats on how many employees are able to access their group RSP for the first time homeowners?
That is a very good question. I don't think I have it. I did see though, it doesn't happen as much as we want because I was actually doing a plan review today. Very small plan, like a 10, 11 employees for the group, and just sort of looking through some of the stats. And you never want to see withdrawals from programs, right? You're always like, it means someone's left the company, someone's lost their job, somebody's run into financial difficulty, and they got to take an emergency withdrawal, this kind of thing. There was one withdrawal from this company. It's again very new program, very small. I think there's about 60 grand in there. And there was this withdrawal in December for 4,500 bucks. And I'm like, oh, geez, so someone must have lost their job or something. And then you scroll down and they give you the details on it. And I was very happy to see it was a home buyer's plan. So we knew that that one withdrawal that was basically 10% of the program, right? Very small program, but 10% of the program, seeing somebody is using it in that way so that they can put that money towards the purchase of their home. You're like, it's that eureka moment of, yes, finally somebody is, we're seeing somebody using the program to make their lives better. So I was really happy to see that today. So
For those who may not know, can you take us through what the first time home buyers plan is and how it
sure.
relates to GRS?
Yeah, yeah, of course. So any RRSP, including group RRSPs, you can make a withdrawal. Now you can always make a cash withdrawal, which is a bad idea because there's withholding tax. But you can make a tax-free withdrawal from your RRSP for the first-time home buyers plan. You can also make it for the lifelong learning plan. So, first time home buyers plan, pretty self explanatory. You want to buy a home, you're essentially taking an interest free loan out of your own RRSP. So, there's no penalty on it. The only thing is you have to repay the amount that you took out over the next 15 years. So, as long as you've been continually making RRSP contributions, it's not like you have to do any more. You just top it back up again over the next 15 years. In the latest budget, I believe they changed the amount that you can do for the home buyers plan. I think it was around 30 before. I think it's up to maybe about 45 now. I don't recall exactly, but so that's a really good example of how employees not just saving for their retirement, but being able to use those assets that they put away as well as what their employers put away to better their lives without having with by and minimizing the financial impact of making that large purchase. So that's the home buyer's plan. The other one is the lifelong learning plan, which we're very similar to the home buyer's plan. I don't think the amount is quite as much though. But if you want to go back to school, that includes trades as well. It's not just necessarily universities. You can make that same type of taking that same type of loan from your own RSP to pay for continued education. Again, you no penalties on it, and then you would just repay it back over a period of time. So both of those are great programs. Also, with that first homeowner savings account is starting to creep into group retirement a little bit. I believe IA has a program now where you can do the matching program through the first time home for FHSA. And so that's another way that employers can show that benefit to their employees, helping them build that down payment up through their workplace savings program.
Fabulous versatility and how far we're coming with
Hmm.
these tools.
Yeah.
If there's one thing you don't want somebody to forget, what would be the one thing not to forget when they're thinking about putting in an employer retirement program?
It will not be successful if the employer is not putting money into it. There are some programs out there. Now, there's exceptions to every rule, but quite often they will be employers coming to us saying, "Yeah, we want to set up a group RSP for our employees, but we don't want to put a match amount on it." That's going to have the exact opposite effect of all the things that we've talked about today. It's going to look like a token gesture that's not really, there's not any tangible benefit to it. I mean, all they're really doing is getting a savings on fees. There's not a huge benefit to it. Again, there are some exceptions to this rule. I've set up plans where the employees are asking for a group RSP because they want a tax sheltered way to receive their commissions or bonuses. That's a different story. But if you're just saying, "Oh yeah, I think we'll say that we have a group savings plan. We can put it in the brochure. We can talk about it in the onboarding." If the employer's not putting money into it, it's not going to be seen as a benefit, and quite possibly the opposite by the people that you're trying to influence with it. So
Absolutely. If you can't put skin in the game, there's no sense of getting into the game.
exactly, yeah.
Well, this has been enlightening as it always is.
Thanks for having me, Lori.